Now that we're done with how to prepare before we will start memorizing the Quran, there is more, of course, but it's just a list to start with, inshallah ta'ala. What do I do? How do I start? I know, okay, I prepared everything, alhamdulillah. Now, mashallah, I'm become familiar with the Quran because I've been reading it for a very long time. Like, take a whole year. Take a whole year, read the Quran every month, once a month, twice a month if you can, if possible. So you get yourself familiar with the Quran, so when you start memorizing, inshallah, it becomes easy for you to do so. So what do I do now? Right now, what I'm going to start doing is I start with the memorization by starting with short surah first. Why do I start with short surahs? You start with the short surahs because it encourages you. Because you know what? When you accomplish something, alhamdulillah, makes you feel good, makes you feel better. So begin with the sense of accomplishment. Take few surahs from Juz 30, the 30th, Juz 29th, for example, 28th. And after you're done with that, you can start with bigger surahs. You can start with bigger surah. So begin with small, short surahs, and then start with the bigger surahs afterwards. And then you starting from the beginning of the Mus'haf. So the first thing you do, once again, start with short surahs that you can easily accomplish, inshallah ta'ala, to give you a morale and a booster to memorize even more. That's number one. Number two, then start with surahs you're familiar with. Like, for example, if you recite Surah Al-Kahf frequently, every week, it will make sense to start memorizing Surah Al-Kahf. If you like to recite Surah Al-Rahman, do so. If you like to recite Surah Maryam, Surah Yasin, go ahead and memorize this surah you're familiar with. That gives you actually a booster, alhamdulillah. It gives you a booster, helps you out. Then what you need to do, then you start going from the beginning of the Mus'haf, inshallah, by starting with Surah Al-Baqarah, because you've already built momentum, built connection, alhamdulillah. You have a booster right now, and now you have the skill to start memorizing. How do I do that? How do I do that? I start dividing the portions of my memorization into small segments. I don't know if you guys can see it from the reflection here, but for example, I begin starting, for example, from here, and just assign for myself, let's say, 3 lines. I will go here, 3 ayat. And then with these 3 ayat, what do? I start memorizing 1 ayah at a time. How do I memorize 1 ayah at a time? That's what you need to do, the frequent repetition. We've talked about it yesterday when we said you need to read the meaning of the words of the Quran. So obviously, you start assigning a segment for yourself, read that translation, read the tafsir so you understand what you're about to memorize, inshallah ta'ala. That helps you actually make connection with the words sometimes. So you can tell which word is where it fits in the ayah. And when you do so, then you start repeating the ayah 1 time, 2 times, and then you start going up to 20 times, 16 times, they say is the minimum actually to start, kind of sticking a little bit. But if you do even more, alhamdulillah, that would be better. It will be even much better for you. So you do a lot of repetition, inshallah ta'ala. Shaykh Mashanqidi, Habibullah ta'ala, he said, if you do 200 times, there is no way you're going to forget it, which is true. So if you can repeat for 200 times, each ayah, that would be awesome, that would be great. But how many of us can really stand that? But definitely, it requires a lot of dedication to do so. So repeat the ayah multiple times until it's fixed. Let's stick with, for example, 20 times. You repeat the ayah 20 times. And as you repeat the ayah 20 times, obviously you keep repeating it and over and over again. And then after you do so, after you're reading it multiple times, and you start memorizing it by covering basically the Mus'haf. You need to repeat it 20 times by heart, without mistakes. Every time you make a mistake, you repeat again until you have 20 times without mistakes. And then you move to the next ayah. Then you do the same thing too. Once you're done 20 times without mistakes, now you connect the 2 ayat together. And you make them 20 times without mistakes. Once you're done, you do a third one. You do it without mistakes. And you do them 3 together, inshallah ta'ala. Now once you're done with doing the assignment for that day, connect what you memorized with what you've memorized before. So you review what you memorized together. So for example, 2 pages, 3 pages, to connect them together. You don't have to connect all what you've memorized, but at least you repeat the last, for example, hizb, which is 1/4, for example, half of the juz' or 1/4 of a juz', and so on. So you repeat that together so you can connect them together. Once you've done, alhamdulillah, with this, bismillah, you read the next assignment, so you get yourself familiar with that. And then for the next day, you start probably maybe write it again, and then get ready, inshallah, to memorize that, bidnillahi tabaraka wa ta'ala. You need, though, as you memorize, you need to give yourself 1 day of the week, no memorization, just revision. 1 day of the week that you choose just to repeat, which means what do? You go and start reciting from the beginning to the end of all what you memorized, as much as you can. So you repeat that. so many times until inshallah it's fixed bidnillahi tabaraka wa ta'ala, and then you help inshallah ta'ala to move to the next phase bidnillah azza wa jal. Now, what do I do with what I memorized? You have to have a daily word, a daily time with the Quran, with the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And finally, my last recommendation for you is to use what you've memorized in your salah. If you're not going to using it in salah, you're going to forget it. So instead of always reading Qul huwallahu ahad, inna a'tainaka al-kawthar, wa Surah al-Asr, which is alhamdulillah beautiful, amazing surahs of the Quran, no doubt about it. But you need to start now reciting larger surah and longer surahs. Why? So you could alhamdulillah enjoy your ibadah in your salah. You do it during the day, and the best obviously is during the night. Now, why during the night? Because during the night, you review what you're going to be reciting in your tahajjud, and then you put the mushaf on the side. Don't hold the mushaf in your salah. Because if you hold the mushaf in your salah, that's it, you're done. You see, in the past, people didn't have the luxury of having masahif like we do today, alhamdulillah. We have them in print format, we have them in digital format. Back in the day, they used to use tablets. So they write on the tablet, and then after that, they memorize that. And once they memorize it, what happens? They erase it. And they write the new assignment for them. Which means once it's erased, if you don't memorize, it's gone. It's gone. That's why their memory was stronger. Today we're lazy. Why? Because we have the mushaf in our hand available. So as we memorize, we keep putting our finger like this. You try to repeat and repeat and repeat, and then what do? You forget, you cheat. That little cheating that you do weakens your memorization. It's not that it's haram to do that, but it just weakens your memorization. So be careful, inshallah ta'ala. One thing I forgot to mention, as a matter of fact, as part of your memorization, make sure to standardize your mushaf and choose one copy for the mushaf.